To everybody that celebrates Easter, happy Easter. And on this day of resurrections and rising, I want to encourage everybody to focus not on the resurrection itself, but focus on the art of living what is true and letting die what is false. Because when you focus on living the art of life, life will give you art worthy of creating. And the thing is that you don't really decide what is worthy and what is not. You do, but you don't. All of this is very paradoxical, of course. And how to never resurrect or reincarnate ever again really comes down to accepting that you don't need to worry about it. You don't need to worry about reincarnation or past lives. It can be very useful to understand that, yeah, this is something that happens. Like in this construct that we live in, you can think about it as the reality recycles the bodies until the soul awakens unto itself and then it goes away. Or you could believe, or you could think that, well, we've only got one soul and we've got one body. Either way, it doesn't really matter. What matters is focusing on this life right now. Focusing on what you can do to further your art of living. And letting go of what is false or letting what is dying die. That is really the key antidote to the suffering that you may feel when it comes to past lives and such, because I've had people ask me about past lives and tell me about their past lives, and I think to myself, I had a vision when I was writing my book. Well, I wasn't like writing my book while I had the vision. I was documenting the vision and then I wrote the book afterward. But I had the vision in 2020 and it was essentially the serpent of wisdom. And the serpent of wisdom, I asked it about reincarnation. I asked it about why and how I need to focus on this. Do I need to be aware of it? Is it true? And the serpent of wisdom essentially told me, don't worry about it. Focus on the life that you're living right now. And this serpent of wisdom, I think, in retrospect, had more wisdom in that statement than I even realized. And this often happens when you have confrontations with these characters of the unconscious, as I call them. Whenever you have these confrontations with the unconscious, it usually transpires into this integrative process that could take a day, it could take a year, it could take 2 years, it could take a lifetime, who knows. But the thing is that what makes people different when in fact they're most ordinary is that they're constantly reflecting on themselves. They're consistently looking at how they are reflecting themselves in the moment. And that is something that I think that I do that has made me who I am and what I am to you anyway, what I am to you, more so than anything else in this life. Because I'm consistently reflecting and I'm consistently asking myself if what I'm doing is necessary for my growth, or is it helping me grow, or is it helping me evolve, or is it just kind of fun and desire, like it's just a desire. Because after a certain point, your desires, they're still there, but it's like you don't really you don't even really desire the desire anymore. You don't really desire to fulfill the desire. It's like, yeah, it's there, the desire is there, but you don't really feel Like, oh, I need to have this desire fulfilled. I need to do this. I need to feel this. I want to, I desire. You just feel it until you don't even really feel it anymore. Like, it's paradoxical. The whole point of this truth is paradoxical, and that's why it's hard to live the life. You know, this is when Jesus Christ says, I am the resurrection and the life. If you look at the Bhagavad Gita, I don't remember how to pronounce it. I'm just going to call it the Gita. When you look at the Gita and you read what Krishna says, Krishna is basically saying exactly what Jesus Christ is saying in the Bible, like almost verbatim. One might even think that the Bible got what it said from Krishna. Now, I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think it's possible. I don't have the chronological data points to support that, but I think that it's entirely possible. The Bible seems to be more of a reincarnation, you might say, of the ancient Greek mythologies. And those of you that are saying, oh, no, but our society's Western, if you're in the West, right? Our society is Christian. We're Christian here in the West. No, you're not. You're Greek. You have no clue what you're doing and how you're perceiving nearly everything that we have in our society here in the West, because I'm in the United States. Here in the West, it's a byproduct of Greece. You know, it's basically a reincarnation of how Greece operated. I mean, we have a republic, you know, and not so many words. We have a republic democracy. And that's what the Greeks had to some degree, as far as we can tell, as far as the data points goes. But life is just a reincarnation of itself consistently. And that's all that it is. I mean, this is energy dancing with itself, this life. And so what you need to be focusing on, like let's say, for example, you want more money or better relationships. Let's go with better relationships for this, because you're going to need to integrate your anima or your animus. And the animus for women is the totality of masculine experiences inside the female psyche. The anima for men is the totality of feminine experiences inside the masculine psyche, the male psyche. So if you don't integrate the relationship that you have with the opposite gender in yourself, you're going to attract these toxic narcissistic relationships and such. And if you don't develop your relationship with your shadow, you're going to have hard relationships with the similar gender, the same gender. That's just usually how it goes, psychologically speaking. And so a lot of people misplace and put a lot of trust in the wrong types of things because they're not integrating the right things. And this is why it's so important to have discernment and to focus on how you can consistently grow and reflect to yourself. Is this good for my spirit? Is this good for my soul and my well-being? And even then, right, like you have to notice the good and the bad and the evil and the good. Like, notice these titles that you give these things, right? Like, this is a meta within a meta. And so this is where the regal timeline theory comes into play, because the regal timeline theory will give you an understanding and an understanding of these pattern convergence signals that determine whether or not something is good for your soul or not. And if you're on a collapsing timeline, you're basically accumulating karma that doesn't need to be there, or you're trying to burn karma that is just leading into more self-sabotaging tactics. And when I say karma, I don't mean, like, a lot of Westerners hear the word karma, and because they're so rigid in their belief systems, they hear something else than what I'm really saying, because they've been primed to think about a certain thing in a certain way for so long, they can't even tell the difference. And it's the same type of thing in the East, right? The Eastern religions, when they hear certain things about the Western, it's not always the case, right? It takes a truly individuated person to be able to acknowledge and accept these different modalities of thought without accepting them altogether. You can entertain these without accepting these, rather, right? And a lot of people can't even do that. They can't even entertain the ideas because it's too much for them. It's too much. And this is part of the allowing yourself to be reborn comes into play. Focus on what is living and focus on what can be dying or what is dying. Because if something is actually living, like let's say, now this is again where the paradox comes into play, because you might be having a difficult time believing in yourself, right? And you might have a hard time or difficult time trusting that what you're doing is right. Especially if you're getting like little to no results, it seems like. It's like, what am I doing wrong? Like, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing wrong? What am I doing wrong? You might not be doing anything wrong. You might just not recognize that the change first has to happen inside of you. You have to trust that what you're doing is right and ignore the results, quote unquote. Ignore what's going on. Like ignore whatever is going on out here and focus what's going on in here. Do you feel like what you're doing is full of life? Even if other people don't think so in the spirit of the moment? I mean, I can't tell you how many times like I've experienced that in my life. I remember something very specifically. When I first started to really dive deeper into myself and my spiritual practice, probably about 8-9 years ago now. And when I first started to do this, I remember how other people thought that like taking psychedelics, for example, was fun. It was a fun thing. It was a fun thing to smoke weed. It was a fun thing to do psychedelics and all that. It was just fun. It was entertaining. And for me, I had a completely different experience. Completely different. I felt drawn to document everything that was going on with me internally and to document my experiences in a way where I was almost experimenting on myself by partaking in the smoking of marijuana and psychedelics. I'm not saying I do this anymore. I see it as a form of plant medicine for sure. But because I don't think medicine as we know it actually exists. I don't think it does. I think it's a sedative. Medicine that we have, like even these SSRIs, right? You know, something in I know this isn't appropriate for most people to say, especially in the spiritual community, because most people say, well, some people do need SSRIs. And I used to think this at one point too, like, yeah, people do need SSRIs, or people do need these, these experiences or these things where they do have to know that they have access to this medication. And even like ibuprofen and such. And it's like, yeah, I think there are maybe still, like, yes, generally speaking, I would say generally speaking, no, nobody needs medication as we know it nowadays. This pharmacology that we know it nowadays, it's pretty useless. However, there are exceptions and there are instances where, yeah, maybe some medication is necessary. Like SSRIs or even like ibuprofen or Tylenol or something, right? Like cough medicine. Like there might be certain instances where these things are necessary. But generally speaking, if you need like a chemical to balance out your internals, usually it's, from what I've seen, it's something going on with your soul. It's something going on internally. And I know that that's something that many people don't want to hear, but I don't think that if you had your soul right, your body would be like broken. I don't think that that's really possible. Now, I'm not saying there are not exceptions. I'm speaking generally, because generally people have 10 fingers. Generally people have 10 toes. Generally people have arms and legs and like, okay, generally speaking, yes. However, there are instances where I think that yes, there are going to be exceptions where maybe there's certain things happening that you need that medication or you need certain help. There's nothing wrong with help. Okay, that's another lie for the society that we live in, is we tend not to think about help, or, oh, I don't need help. I'm an individual. I don't need help. It's like, well, there's nothing wrong with letting people who, it's like Uncle Iroh says in Avatar: The Last Airbender. There's nothing wrong with people who love you helping you and letting them do so. Sometimes it's necessary. But are they trying to, like, do they love you because they love you, or do they love you because they're trying to attach themselves to you? Now that's the key thing right there. Because sometimes people, and I've had this happen to me myself, where I've seen people, they really want to help me out, right? Like they really want to love me and help me out. But what they really want to do is be seen. What they really want to do is feel like they're doing something more. And there's nothing really wrong with that. It's just that they're lying to themselves. They're gaslighting themselves. It's like, you don't want to help me because you have something to offer. You want to help me because it makes you feel like you're needed. It makes you feel like you're wanted. I don't need you. And you don't really need me. We just want each other. And so this is the paradox of the spiritual practice. And this is what needs to be focused on with life. Okay? With life comes the recognition of life. With death comes no recognition. If you are clouded in your judgment, if you're clouded in your sensations, if you're clouded in your mind, it's probably not working for you. Like, for example, tobacco. I use tobacco from a shamanistic perspective now, and I'm only using tobacco when I want an earthly grounded clarity. Because if I were to try to smoke it all the time, I would be just, it would be like trying to do marijuana or psychedelics or anything too much, right? Or anything that is just too much, it's going to be too much. It just is. And so you might think to yourself, I need to, I'm not saying that you should smoke tobacco or anything, by the way. I'm just saying that it can be a tool. Anything can be a tool, or it could be something that sabotages you. Even relationships. Relationships can be a way for you to see the vessel of your own coming to God through the other person, like a relationship. Like when you say, this is what always got me growing up, and I never really understood it until my spiritual practices started to mature. People would say, oh, I love you. I'm in love with you. Like when I heard that from a man to a woman or a woman to a man, I was like, well, what exactly does that mean to be in love? Because from what I see, most people being in love just looks like stupidity. It kind of looks like delusion, right? Like it doesn't really look like anything. When I see people in love, I see two googly-eyed, just sorry for themselves, but so focused on the other person that they can't even see themselves. What is that? Now I know exactly what it means to be in love. Now, instead of being in love with others, I have love for others, and I'm in love with myself. I don't need to be in love with another person. I just am. I just am. And so I see this whole existence. I see the trees over here and over there. I see the birds. There's usually some squirrels going on about over here too, but I don't see the squirrels today. But usually there's there's all of these different types of forms of life. And I see it as one organism, but participating in different forms of that same organism. And that's really what life is. And this is what Krishna says in the Gita. Krishna says that if you see me, you're going to see life forever. Well, that kind of sounds like what Jesus Christ says when he says, I'm the resurrection and the life. And nobody comes to the Father except through me. And when you do, you're going to see everlasting life. That kind of sounds like the same thing. Maybe Jesus Christ was a guru. Maybe Krishna was a guru. The more I study Eastern religions, the more I think that the Eastern religions got it right, more so than the West. But as a Westerner, to partake in the Eastern religions without fully understanding the Western religion would be like spiritually castrating yourself for no reason. You kind of have to start where you're at and then move forward. But again, time is non-linear. So maybe there's no reason to go back and forth, and this is why you hear people say in the spiritual world, you'll hear people say like, when you find yourself, don't go without and don't go within. Just be. Just be. I think that's everything that I wanted to say in this video, so I hope this message was useful and insightful for you. I very much appreciate everybody that's been tuning in to this new Regal Shaman channel. I've been having the Regal Change channel for a few years now, but I wanted to make another channel where we dive into these deeper topics like this and get more into the depths of the spiritual practices and such. And I still have the similar offers that I do with the Regal Change brand over here. So I have the Regal Academy. I've got my one-on-ones and the Godlike Mastery. But overall, it's going to be just different content material. Same guy, different message. Different message, different guy sometimes, I suppose, depending on how you look at it. Because we are, as Alan Watts would say, not obligated to be the same person we were 5 minutes ago. So this again comes into line with live the life. Don't focus on what's dying. Focus on living the life and the art of life. So with all that being said, peace be with you. Until next time.